Hello, everybody. Welcome back to UL100ZB for the week of April 1st, 2019, and our video tutorial on Manage. Manage is Chapter 6 of our Information Literacy User's Guide textbook, and it's the sixth pillar of information literacy. In this tutorial, we're going to focus upon the need to organize information professionally and ethically. So by the time we finish with this tutorial, you'll understand, know, and recognize how to keep systematic records of information and how to be honest and ethical in all aspects of information handling and dissemination. We're also going to show you some ways of using freely available software to manage information and data. I should note here that you are not required to use any of these software programs that I'll be showing you in this tutorial. However, I really encourage you to try out some of them and see how they can help you in keeping track of all of your articles, your citations, so that they're organized and managed in one place. So some issues that we're going to be considering in this pillar, and we'll be doing this later on in subsequent modules, are issues of plagiarism, copyright, and as I mentioned, bibliographic management software. Plagiarism is covered on page 82 of our textbook, and plagiarism is defined as when you use words, thoughts, or ideas that belong to someone else without giving them credit. Now, something we're going to ask you to do in an engagement activity for this module is to think about a time in which maybe you struggled with whether or not to credit someone else for an idea or a fact in a paper or other project. And that actually does overlap into plagiarism. This is why your professors are so tough about citing sources in your papers with direct quotes or indirect quotes. I can tell you that it's very easy when you're writing a research paper to get facts sort of confused in your mind and not even realize it. And then when you sit down and you start actually writing a paper, you might wind up plagiarizing without even intending to. In other words, you might wind up writing about an idea or a concept or a fact that you actually read about in an article, but in the haste of writing the paper, you may not remember that that's actually not your original thought. Copyright overlaps into this area as well. You may not realize this, but anything that you have created up until this point in time, if you've ever created a website, if you've ever written a paper, which I know most of you have by this point in time, you've actually created something that's original that already has your copyright. So in other words, something you'll be doing for us, if you choose to, in this class, is creating a web portfolio that will bring all of your resources together and your analysis of resources for the topic that you're working on. Neither Megan nor I could use anything from your web portfolios without asking you first for permission. And that's something that you might not have realized up until now. So you have a copyright to your own intellectual property. At the same time, other people have a right and a copyright to their own intellectual property. So intellectual property really is anything that we have created. If we've written a song, if we've written a poem or a play or a short story, that work is that individual's intellectual property as well. So nobody else can use your items without permission, and you can't use other people's items without at least citing or giving them credit for their ideas or their own creation. I mentioned bibliographic management software. We're going to be going into this in a few minutes during this tutorial. There are a number of ways that you can organize and manage your information sources in collections or folders, and they will also help you create your bibliographies in certain citation styles such as MLA or APA. And many of these software programs are free to use. So I'm going to be giving you in this tutorial some brief examples of those. So fair use and plagiarism. Do any of your professors have articles available on campus for you to read? So in other words, you might have some courses that you're taking right now in which you might have PDFs of articles or links to articles that are already embedded in your campus course. Now, interestingly enough, those actually can fall under something called fair use when it comes to United States copyright laws. And one reason is that your professors are not actually asking you to purchase those articles in order to read them. They're also available only through a password-protected site. So think about this. In Canvas, the only way that you can access Canvas in your courses is by entering your buzz-in username and password for ESU. So that's protected under something called fair use for the most part. Now, bullet point number 2. If you have to write an annotated bibliography, is it okay to copy and paste the abstract of the article from a database? No, that is not. An annotated bibliography will actually require you to read an article or a book, basically read the full text of an item, and then usually you will do a summary or an abstract. In other words, you're going to tell the audience what that's about in your own words. You do not copy and paste the abstract from a database or from any other source. That is indeed plagiarism. Now, third bullet point. Is it okay to copy and paste an image online and put it into a PowerPoint presentation? When we get ready in our next week to show you how you're going to be creating your web portfolio, something we're going to show you as well are sites online that fall under something called Creative Commons. And basically what that means is if you want to put a photo or an image that you found online into a PowerPoint presentation or into a website, you want to look for images or photos that fall under something called Creative Commons. And that simply means that those images are free from copyright. So you're not going to get into trouble by actually copying and pasting those images or photos that fall under the Creative Commons images. If you decide that you're going to do your own photo or an image that actually you created, you would be okay doing that as well. You can't, though, just go out and find a photo of something or an image of something online and say, I like that, I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste that into my presentation or other type of work. That is indeed plagiarism, unless you actually give credit to that image or that photo. And that would apply to images or photos or other types of areas like that in which you don't have a Creative Commons license. So in that case, you do need to give credit to the person who actually created that image or who took that photo. So plagiarism, similarities, and asking permission. In just a second, I'm going to switch over to YouTube, and we're going to listen for a few seconds to a couple of songs. Every Breath You Take by the Police, which was released back in the 1980s, and another song called I'll Be Missing You, which was released in the 90s. Sean Combs, who used to be known as Puff Daddy and then P. Diddy, actually was the, not necessarily creator, but the person who was responsible, the artist who was responsible for the second video that we'll be listening to, I'll Be Missing You. So we're going to come back to this in just a second because I want you to listen to both of these. And then we're going to look at something that actually did skirt the boundaries of plagiarism. I'm going to pause that here. And now we'll switch to our second video, I'll Be Missing You.
true love. Check it out. Seems like yesterday we used to rock the show. I laced the track, you locked the flow. So far from hanging on the block though. Notorious, they got to know that life ain't always what it seemed to be. Words can't express what you mean to me. Even though you're gone, we still a team. For your family, I'll fulfill your dream. In the future, can't wait to see if you open up the gates for me. Reminisce sometime. The night they took my friend. Try to black it out, but it plays again. When it's real, feeling's hard to conceal. Can't imagine all the pain I feel. Give me anything to hear half the breath. I know you're still living your life after death.
Every move I make, every single day, every time I play, I'll be missing you.
So those two sounds sound quite a bit alike, don't they? The two songs very much do sound alike, and you can hear the bass line in particular in the background of I'll Be Missing You, with just a few changes as far as the lyrics are concerned. Now that's something that has been known in music for probably the last couple of decades as sampling. Now there's nothing wrong with sampling, again, if permission is asked and if it is granted by the original artists who created that song or the publishers that own the copyright to that particular song. Well, what happened though with Every Breath You Take, this was very popular. It was one of the biggest hits of 1983. The songwriting for Every Breath You Take wound up being credited 100% to Sting. So he's considered to be the song's sole composer. In 1997, it received a huge reboot in popularity when it was released as a tribute to the late rapper, the Notorious B.I.G., as I'll Be Missing You. Unfortunately, no one from Bad Boy Records, Sean Combs' label, had thought to secure Sting's permission to sample the 1983 pop song for the updated 1997 remix. And I find this to be extremely interesting. If permission had been asked first, they likely would have been required to hand over 25% of the publishing royalties of I'll Be Missing You. By forgetting to ask permission before the song was released, Sting was able to demand and receive 100% of the remix's publishing royalties. That is a lot of money. So we've talked about the economics of information in previous video tutorials. I think this is a perfect example of the economics of information and information as a commodity. As much as anything else, you can wind up getting in trouble, but you can also wind up being liable for a lot of money if you don't follow the rules of crediting areas, crediting people, crediting artists, or asking for permission if you're getting into something like this that is a larger situation altogether. I've always found that to be a very interesting example because it's something that happened and I think anybody even thought about that. So one way to help avoid plagiarizing is to use something called a bibliographic management software program. Now, as I mentioned, a lot of these programs are actually freely available and they're free to you as ESU students as well. A bibliographic management software program can do things such as save references of books, articles, websites, and other sources, and you can organize these in folders just like different folders that you would have on your computer. They can also help save PDFs of articles, and the great thing about that is then you don't have to remember if you downloaded a PDF to your computer or to a flash drive, or if you saved it in Google Drive, everything is basically collected in one place, in one location. Many software programs too will allow you to take notes about these items for future research, so they can actually help you in terms of creating an annotated bibliography or just making a note as a reminder of why this item that you saved may be potentially useful to you. You can download references to articles, books, websites, other sources of information in bibliographic management software programs, and then you can actually convert them into your preferred citation style to help you create a bibliography, a works cited page, or a references list. So a huge time saver for information. So check first to see what's already available in the library database or a search engine. We're going to switch in just a second to something called an EBSCOhost account. Now, we have many databases through the library that are available through a service called EBSCOhost. And creating a free account in EBSCOhost will let you save citations, PDFs, and actually your search histories of what you've already searched in that specific database. These types of accounts are also available in different databases. We have some databases that are available through the ProQuest service, and they also will enable you to create a free account. You may not realize this, but with Google Scholar, you can sign in with your Google account and you can save references and citations in a preferred style as well. But we want to think about what citation styles are supported and what are some of the limitations of these free accounts. I'm going to switch back and I'm going to demonstrate to you first what's already readily available to you. So I'm at the library's webpage. I'm going to go to the Databases tab, and I'm going to go to a fairly common database that's also through the EBSCOhost service called Academic Search Complete. And as I mentioned, we have many databases that are available through EBSCOhost. You can always tell when you click on a database, look to see if you can see the service provider or the hosting service. And that's usually going to be on the front page of the database. So this one, Academic Search Complete, is through EBSCOhost. I'm now going to click on to sign in. And when I do this, this will enable me to gain access to my EBSCOhost account. Now, if you would want to set up a new account for yourself, you can actually click on Sign In with Google. And when you do this, you can actually create an EBSCOhost account and sign in with your g.emporia.edu account. And I have one created already under Cynthia Kane, so I'm going to click on this. And now I am signed in as myself. So at this point, I could go to an advanced search, limit my search again by the abstract of an article, and I can do a search for perhaps bulimia, and treatment. And I could do treatment or intervention or therapy. And now that I am signed into my EBSCOhost account, there are two things that I can do which will help me tremendously in my future research to organize my information. The first thing I can do is I can click on Search History. I've only done one search so far in Academic Search Complete, but if I had done more than one search, all of my searches would have appeared over here. And I could click on any of my searches that seem to be rather promising. If I want to go back and rerun that search later on, I can save my search. I could just call it whatever I would want. And you can see that in my folder, I've actually saved a number of searches. So if I went back to the one that I just saved, bulimia, I can rerun a search, and there's my search again. And the great thing about this is I can come back at any time when I have a little bit more time, go back into my database, such as Academic Search Complete, sign into my EBSCOhost account, and then rerun my search at any point. So this is a huge time saver. So this is one example of a management software program. The other thing that I can do, now that I'm signed into my account, is click on this little folder icon over here. Now yours is going to look a little bit different because I have actually created different subfolders for my different research projects, and you can do this in your EBSCOhost account very easily. Let's do one more. And now when I go back up to the top of the screen, I can go to my folder view. I've saved a lot of articles, as you can see, including this one, and some of my last ones that I just saved. And there's my other one that I saved. I can also go over here, click on New, and I can create a new subfolder. And I can also move this under a different subfolder category if I wanted, and click on Save. So then I could move any article that I selected here. We'll go down and find one. Here we are. Go back up here to the top of the screen, and I'm going to move this to my subfolder. So you see how easy it is to organize your search histories and your folders when you're in something called an EBSCOhost account for an EBSCOhost database. If you ever have any questions about creating an account, don't hesitate to contact me or contact Megan, and we'd be happy to help you offline as well. So going back, another free bibliographic management software program that I'm going to show you is called Zotero. And the address for that is www.zotero.org. It's based in the cloud. It's very similar to Google Drive in that respect. And it integrates with Google Chrome, Firefox, and Safari as far as the browsers are concerned. It does not integrate with Internet Explorer. And I'm going to show you just very quickly what Zotero looks like. When I went to www.zotero.org, I can just click on Download. And if you are using Windows, you can download Zotero 5.0 for Windows, but you will also want to download something called a connector if you are using Google Chrome. The reason for that is that the Chrome connector will actually let Zotero talk to Google Chrome a lot more efficiently and a lot more effectively. So the way Zotero works is like this. When you download Zotero to your computer, and if you download the Zotero connector, you will actually get a large Z as an icon that will appear on your desktop. And you always want to have that particular icon open first before you can download references to Zotero. So you notice I do have a lot of things going on here in my Zotero account. I have different folders that I've created, and you can download directly from databases or directly from the web ebooks. You can download articles. In this case, this also saves the PDF full text of this specific article, and it's saved in my Zotero account. So again, I don't have to worry about where it went. And I'm going to show you what you would look for. So let's go back to EBSCOhost, and actually I'm going to click on this article. This is another article that I actually downloaded from Academic Search Complete. And you see that this does not have the full text of the article. But up here I have a little icon that says Save to Zotero. So if I click on this icon, this is actually going to save this to a subfolder in Zotero, or I can save it to my main folder. And when I go back here, we're going to go back to my library, and I can actually find the article that I downloaded and then have access to that. And that's something that will happen when you are using Zotero. We're going to go back over here, and I could actually find that reference to that article, and then I have that saved in my Zotero account. I can then create a bibliography in Zotero and then download that onto my computer in a specific citation style, such as MLA or APA. Again, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about Zotero, we'd be happy to give you a quick lesson either in person or online. Just let us know, because this is a great way of managing your information as well. Let's go back here. Finally, we have a new resource through the library that's called Academic Writer. Now, the big thing about Academic Writer is that it is only for APA style. It does not support MLA. But if you are using APA style for our class, and you also have to use APA style for any other classes that you're taking, we really encourage you to create a free account with Academic Writer. Again, this all has to do with managing information. Academic Writer offers access to 3 areas: Learn, Reference, and Write. The Learn Center has quick video guides and tutorials to help you learn how to cite citations in APA style. The Reference Center will help you actually build a reference list. And the Write Center offers access to sample paper templates in APA style, so that will actually help you write a research paper if you have to write a paper for another class in APA style. And it's very easy to access. We'll go back over here. Again, back at the library's homepage, I'm going to click on Databases again. And now I will click on Academic Writer. If you're using Academic Writer for the first time, the first thing you want to do is go to Welcome and log in and create a free account like we did with our EBSCOhost account. And I have one that's already created, so I'm going to click on Login. The reason you want to create a free account with Academic Writer is that will actually let you access the 3 centers that I mentioned: Learn, Reference, and Write. So in the Learn Center, I might need a quick refresher under Sample References. We'll go to Browse by Topic. I might need a quick refresher of how to cite a journal article that has something called a DOI, or a Digital Object Identifier. And when I clicked on that, there's my sample citation. And so I can use that to help me create my own citation or to proofread. Remember, we always say that if you use the Cite or Citation Tools features in different databases, you've got to proofread them because they may not be 100% accurate. This is one way that I could proofread that type of citation using Academic Writer to help me. The Reference Center will help me add references. And the great thing about that is if I click on Journal Article, this will actually call up a template where I can actually input information to try to create a citation for a journal article. Now, this is particularly handy if I'm using a PDF and I don't have a citation already created. I can use this particular template to help me create that citation or that reference so it is accurate for a journal article or any other type of document. And finally, with Write, we're not asking you to write a paper for UL100, but if you have to write a paper in APA style for any other class, you can go to the Write Center, click on Write a New Paper, and select a template. Usually a basic paper template will do the trick. And in this place, you can enter a paper title, and then it's going to help you actually start writing your paper. And the actual references themselves, the template, will look very similar to a Microsoft Word document. It will walk you through that process. It will automatically double space. It will help you add your references. When you finish, everything is saved in your account, and you can download that particular paper as a Microsoft Word document or a PDF to submit to your professor. Again, only for APA style, but we really like Academic Writer. It comes in very handy. So you are now ready to move on to our third video tutorial for our module. And in that video tutorial, we're going to be covering 2 engagement activities you can choose to do for this week. Quiz 1, which is sort of a checkpoint of everything that you've learned so far, and an engagement activity, which is a discussion on evaluate and manage. Finally, you'll be learning how to work on a learning assessment for this week called the evaluation of sources. Good luck.